Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to You Heard It Here. I'm your host, Ben Eddy, and this is Season 1, Episode 5. Today we have a very special guest with us, Caitlyn Word, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the Noble Research Institute. So, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, Caitlyn Word, I am a regenerative ranching consultant at Noble. I was there for 6.5, 7 years. Left for a short stint to teach the ranching for profit school for a year and a half, and now I'm back. And so I originally hired on as a grazing livestock consultant. And so I'm formally trained in ruminant nutrition, so that's what I was brought in to do. And now I work in strategic partnerships, so trying to find educational opportunities for Noble to expand.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
So you're up there a little bit.
Oh, sure.
Stuff.
It's fun. I really enjoy it.
That sounds like it'd be a fun job. So, we came up with some questions, kind of like we usually do. So our first one is Noble Research Institute, based out of Oklahoma. How does it being located in Ardmore help influence the kind of research you'll do?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So historically, it impacted us a lot because we focused on working within a 100-mile radius of Ardmore.
Okay.
And so when we expanded to the Southern Great Plains region. So all of our research has been focused on Southern Great Plains area as opposed to the Intermountain West or out east, right? Now we're a national organization, so we have a more national focus. But everything that we've done has come from the Southern Great Plains. But Noble was founded by Lloyd Noble in 1945, and so there's a lot of roots here. We really care about the community, and so and we manage about 13,500 acres in Carter and Love counties, and so all of our research, really the heart of it is in Southern Oklahoma because of that.
Heck yeah. So Noble has a long history of agriculture innovation. Can you tell us about some of y'all's recent projects or breakthroughs you'll have?
Yeah, for sure. So in about 2020, 2021, we changed our focus of our research. We used to do a lot of kind of typical academic research, and now we focus on ranch scale research. So we took a step back and said, what research would actually impact a rancher and a producer and matter to them? And so we do large scale ranch research. So right now we're in the middle of a project called the 3M Project, stands for Metrics, Monitoring, and Management. And it looks at the impacts of regenerative management on soil health, water quality, water infiltration. There's some socioeconomic stuff in there. And we're partnered with land-grant universities, 11 different locations across the nation, and then also in the UK that are contributing to that project. And so that's what we're doing right now. It's really cool. Yeah. It's an exciting project.
So out there at the Research Institute, I know you guys tore down a building. So what's kind of the plan with that? Are you going to rebuild, or what's that going to be?
Yeah, so there was a fire in that building in like 2018, and so it's been pretty well vacant since then. So it was needing to come down.
Yeah.
And so I don't think they're going to rebuild a building right there, but what we are also doing is renovating one of the other buildings on campus.
Okay.
And so we are going to repurpose our existing buildings to be more functional for our education and collaboration and things like that.
So. Yeah, well, I know one of the construction engineers on that. He said it's been a fun job.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. They said it's been crazy.
It's been pretty massive. They expanded a pond that's on campus and everything.
I've heard that it's been very big. So with many focus areas, how does Noble decide which research or program to prioritize?
Yeah, so kind of like I had already mentioned, we're focused on the rancher and the producer. We're focused on regenerating grazing lands in our country. And so anything that's going to impact specifically grazing lands and ranchers directly, that's what we're interested in doing. And so when I say ranch scale research, traditional conventional research certainly has its place. And that's not what we're interested in doing anymore, where there's replications and small plots and things like that. We want to look at ranch scale. What is the impact, and how can we help this impact reach actual ranchers and help them to be more profitable, more resilient?
Yeah. Especially in times right now,
exactly.
We've talked about it a lot on the podcast about how the money side of everything is tough right now with a lot of people. So you guys definitely kind of touch on that, help ranchers kind of profit the right way and make sure that they're getting the best for their bang.
Yep, absolutely.
How would you define regenerative ranching in a way that people that don't know what that is, kind of how would you explain that to people?
Yeah, so our definition of regenerative ranching is the process of restoring degraded soils using processes based on ecological principles. Okay, so there's 4 ecosystem processes, there's 6 soil health principles. So we take those, and that's just how Mother Nature functions. That's how all of our ecosystems function. And so we take those principles and we say, okay, we are going to bring health and restoration back to the land. Because a lot of our practices over the past, 50, 60, 70 years, and even millennia have just taken from the soil. And so now we need to give back to the soil so that it can perform its function. Because what we've done in traditional agriculture is we have propped up an unsustainable amount of production.
Yeah.
And so now we're saying, how do we get back to a sustainable level of production where the wildlife benefits, the ecosystem benefits, the livestock can benefit, and then the ultimate benefit is that the producer can be profitable.
Yeah, the ranchers. So absolutely. So with regenerative agriculture, you guys are kind of stepping away from like fertilizers and herbicides.
Yeah. So we cold turkeyed, is what I like to say, our ranches in 2021. So for example, we have a ranch down on the Red River, and it was traditionally monoculture Bermuda grass. So it got sprayed multiple times a year, fertilized multiple times a year. It was hayed. And so a lot of inputs, a lot of time, right? And so in 2021, they went and said, we're just going to take all of this. We're going to quit fertilizing and quit spraying. And that was really an interesting lesson because when you do that, what you've done is you've created, essentially a drug addict in the land, right? So it needs these things to survive. And so it's been really cool to see that happen. But yeah, we pulled all of that off of all of our properties.
Have you seen a lot of benefits in those properties?
Absolutely. It got worse before it got better.
Yeah.
It got a lot worse before it got better. So our ranch manager down on Red River, his name's Kevin Pierce, he said, that first year, it wasn't that bad because there was a lot of residual nitrogen in the ground. And the second year was pretty bad. And so lots of weeds. And people hate to see weeds. But they don't understand that they're serving a purpose, right? We've just been trained to hate them. And but once the weeds kind of like played their role and did what they were supposed to do, the amount of forage they grow down there is incredible. The diversity there's a lot of insect diversity and animal diversity, wildlife and otherwise. So yeah, we've seen some really cool benefits.
Yeah. So what do you believe is the single biggest barrier preventing more farms or ranches from adopting regenerative agriculture?
Mindset
of it.
Yeah, just probably lack of peer support maybe.
Yeah.
Right? What is my neighbor going to think?
Yeah.
What is my dad going to think?
Yeah.
Well, this is the way my grandpa did. I want to carry forth his legacy. Right? And so thinking about things differently because we're not ranching in 1970 now. And so if we're not ranching in 1970, we can't think about it the same way someone in 1970 did. So we'll have to start thinking about things differently, especially if, you were just talking about the markets and everything right now, right? We're ranching in a different age. And so if we're in a different environment, we have to start thinking about things differently. And if we're not getting the outcome that we want, we have to do things differently to get a new outcome. And so I would say mindset is the number one.
A lot of guys are scared of change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say the other thing is people have this notion that if you switch to regenerative ranching, people tend to associate that with moving your cattle 3 times a day and, high stock density and lots of hot wire. And they think, I don't have the time to do that. And all of our ranch guys would tell you they don't spend more time. They just spend the time that they do have doing different things instead of fixing tractors and fertilizing and baling hay. They spend it building fence and moving cows.
Yeah. Heck yeah. So what are some of the biggest challenges facing Oklahoma ranchers and farmers right now, and what are you guys doing to help them adapt?
Yeah, so obviously the cattle market is
crazy right now,
making some big swings, right? And I would maybe say again, like one of the biggest challenges is probably mindset around a lot of that stuff. But we deal with droughts, we deal with more frequent droughts. Our rain is less frequent and bigger quantities, and so we have droughts, and then we also have flooding in there because of that. And so we have environmental pressures, and then we also have pressures, economic pressures. And so what we've tried to do to help them, we've built education to try and address those things. And so we have courses about grazing and profitability and applying grazing principles within your business context. We have a marketing class out now. We have soil health principle classes to try and provide education. And the most important thing about those classes is that ranchers get to network with each other and meet each other and talk to each other and, learn the mistakes that they've made and learn from each other. That's probably the greatest benefit of that.
So for the ranchers that want to go to these classes, want to read into these classes, how can they do that?
Yeah, so just go to noble.org, and those classes are all listed on there. We do them nationally, so they're all across the nation. And so, yeah, absolutely, just get on there and reach out. We have a Land and Legacy Scholarship that does help foot some of the costs for producers to go to some of those. And so I would encourage people to look into that.
Heck yeah, absolutely. That's cool. So how do you guys measure success in regenerative ranching on the in terms of land health and the business outcome?
Oh man, that's a good question. How do you measure success? It's a typical economist answer, right? It depends.
Yeah.
But it really does. It depends because no one person, no one ranch, no one producer is in the same situation.
Yeah, it's all different.
Yeah, so everyone's going to have different goals. So success for one person is not going to be success for the next person. And so they really have to figure out what they need. How much profit do I need in order to consider myself successful, right? But what we want to see is them trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
So we would like to see increased organic matter. We would like to see more diversity. We would like to see more ground coverage, so less bare ground. From a business perspective, we'd like to see people who are actually tracking their numbers, know their numbers, or setting goals around their business from a profit perspective. They have profit goals. Most people don't. They just hope they make it to the end of the year and can make the land payment.
Yeah. Have a little bit left over.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people do. They call that, we teach profit and loss in our classes, and a lot of people consider profit leftovers and loss is normal.
Yeah.
And
it shouldn't be that way.
It shouldn't, and it doesn't have to be. And I think there's this paradigm around ranching that you don't ranch to make money. You do it because you love it.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah. But why can't we do both?
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, you should be striving to make some money off of it.
Yeah.
So that you can continue to do what you love.
Right. Yeah. If you should be running a business, the business should not be running you.
Exactly.
That's what we challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the most surprising ways you've seen soil health directly impact profitability for a ranch or farm?
Ooh, that's a good question too. So I would say probably the most obvious way that you see that happen is in an increase in forage diversity and forage production. So I say production with a grain of salt because you can obviously create forage production through fertilizing, right? But when you can get that forage production without having to pay for an input and pay for it to happen, then that's more money in your pocket.
Yeah.
And if you can increase forage utilization, so from a grazing perspective, we talked a lot about forage utilization. So utilizing the forage that's in your pastures as opposed to growing more grass even. You get greater utilization, you can increase carrying capacity, run more animals, right, without having added inputs. And so that's probably the most direct correlation.
Heck yeah. So why is community engagement so important in regenerative agriculture?
Because we're human.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
you have to have people supporting you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a really cool book by a guy named Sebastian Junger called Tribe. And the entire book talks about how we as humans were meant to function in a tribe kind of environment, right? And so it talks a lot about war veterans, how a lot of them would go back into a war situation if they could because of the sense of tribe that they had. It has all sorts of case studies. It's really interesting, but I think that we don't lean on that enough in agriculture and in ranching in particular, because we think that we have to be independent, we have to do it ourselves. Yeah, absolutely, right. And we don't want to talk about our failures because we don't want people to know about them, and that's incredibly detrimental.
Yeah.
And so having community, having people support you, having people say, "Hey, here's where I screwed up. Don't do that," and someone to bounce ideas off of. I mean, it's pivotal.
Yeah, it is. You have to have people supporting you to do anything.
Absolutely.
It's like the football team. One guy can't do the whole thing. Everybody has to be there helping each other.
And it's just the human condition. We just have to have that.
Yeah. So looking ahead, 10, 20, 30 years from now, how do you see the role of regenerative agriculture evolving in the United States or globally?
Oh, man, I think it's just going to get stronger and stronger.
Matter of time.
Yeah. And you can look at that from multiple perspectives. So you can look at it from a business and profitability perspective. The consumer is demanding more of this all the time, right? People want to know where their food comes from. I heard Cody Noble talking on the podcast last week. He was talking about that. People want to know where their food comes from. They want to see the faces that are raising, the products that they're eating. So they're demanding that. And I think the environment is demanding it too. So People think they're tree huggers, and and some of them are, right? But
Yeah.
they're environmentalists. But there's a fact of the matter that we have to take care of the world that we live in,
We do.
and we can only mine it for so long before
It's all gone.
exactly. And so I think if we don't do it, we're going to be in a world hurt
Yeah.
in 20 or 30 years, and people are realizing that. So I think that's why there's this big push. And I think we're going to see a lot of legislature get behind it as well. So,
Well, it's like you talked about, the soil is now depending on us whenever you stop putting like fertilizers and stuff. We weren't put here for the world to depend on us. We were here to depend on the world.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the
Absolutely.
regenerative agriculture is kind of getting back into us depending on the world and that it's applying us.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, too, you asked about regenerative ranching and to define that, right? And I think something we lose sight of, you hear regenerative, and we know that it's about the soil and the ecosystem. But I think we forget that the business has to be regenerative, too. And the people within the business have to be regenerated. And so it's this kind of whole systems approach. And they all work together really, really well, which I was talking to someone about this analogy the other day, which you work with horses, so you'll understand this. I grew up starting colts and raising horses. And I remember starting a colt that I was really, really frustrated with, and I was having a hard time. And I remember my dad telling me, he was like, just work on this one thing. He's like, if you get this part of his body to free up, he said, everything else will get better.
Yeah.
Because if you fix his mind about this one thing, all of a sudden he's open to all these other
It
things, right?
starts to click.
Yeah, so if you can get his hindquarters to move, then his shoulders will free up, and then, right? And I think it's the same way with people and with the way our mind works. So if people either bite onto, I need to be more profitable, so I need to lower my inputs, or I want to improve the environment, I want to improve the soil. Either way, the profit will come and the environment piece will come because I think your mind just starts thinking that way.
Yeah, you start understanding that business mindset.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So what advice could you give to students or anybody who wants to combine agriculture, technology, and sustainability into their future careers?
Well, the best advice for anybody just going into career period is I can't understate the value of networking.
Mhm.
Meet as many people as you can, and don't ever meet someone and think I'm never going to be doing that or working with that person, because it will turn around and bite you in the butt, right?
Yeah.
So I would say just be open-minded and meet as many people as you can and be really, really curious.
Yeah.
Ask a lot of questions. And I know you guys hear that all the time, but I don't think it can be understated,
Yeah.
The way that you treat people now will follow you for the next 10 years and the next 20 years, and put you where you want to be. But specifically with marrying those two things, I think be very open-minded.
Yeah.
I would say in about 2019, I was exposed to virtual fencing. And at the time, it was a fairly kind of new thing, and they didn't have the kinks worked out. And I was part of a project, and I was like, this is never going to work.
Yeah.
You can't replace stockmanship. I was like, it's never going to work. I'm eating my words right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just remain really open and really curious, because possibilities they'll surprise you.
Yeah, it's, something I've been told my entire life, something I say all the time is wake up, start your day with an open mind, and strive to learn something new that day. Take it in.
Absolutely.
I think if you do that every single day, by the end of your life, you can say that you've probably had a successful life.
And I think to add on to that, when you wake up in the morning, instead of going out and saying, I'm going to show my competence today, right, and I'm going to show someone that I know something, I think it's an interesting way to go about life if you start your morning and say, I hope I'm proven wrong today.
Yeah.
I hope that I'm wrong about something and someone shows me that. And then you're open to it.
You are.
And you're a lot more likely to learn something.
I mean, that's why, again, going back to we rely on others, you need to be open-minded so you can learn from them and from their mistakes, and they can learn from us and our mistakes. And
right.
That's a big part of this world today is everybody wants to focus on themselves so much. Nobody wants to learn from other people. They want to be right about everything, and you have to be open-minded.
Right. Yeah, it's that continuous learning mindset.
It is.
Yeah.
So let me think. How can young people, or even those, not in agriculture backgrounds, how can they get involved in regenerative agriculture or land stewardship?
Yeah, so, it probably starts with your neighbor or your uncle or someone your dad knows, right? Just being curious. Offer to go work cows with somebody, ask questions. There's a lot of people who are just, they are antsy to share with you. I was on the phone with someone this morning, Wally Olson. I don't know if you know who Bud Williams was. He was really good friends with Bud Williams, Sell by Marketing. I was on the phone with him this morning, and he wants to come talk to young people. He wants to share what he knows. So I would attend as much educational opportunities as you can. There's a lot of young adult, like young rancher kind of programs out there. Ranching for Profit has a young adult school that is a week long in Wyoming, and you're with 45 other kids your age.
Yeah.
Go do things like that.
Yeah.
Meet people. I would say that's probably the number one thing. There's a lot of free education available online. Noble has one called Noble Land Stewardship. It's a free course online. Attend to those things.
Yeah.
Get on webinars, because then you can see people that are on there, people you want to reach out to, and build your network. I would say that's the number one thing, is build your network.
And that's important, because I think a lot of people have this picture painted in their mind that they're just grumpy old ranchers. They don't.
And they do exist.
They are, but that you can't go and talk to these guys because they're just going to grab about you because you don't know anything. But there's definitely people out there that want to teach you and that want you to learn,
right,
so they can keep on the way.
Find those people, and yeah, absolutely,
very important. So, what skills or mindsets do you see most important for the next generation of ranchers?
The open-mindedness, the ability to communicate with each other. I think having a good set of business skills. If I could go back to college, I majored in animal science and got a degree in ruminant nutrition. I wish I could go back and major in ag business.
Mm-hmm.
I was not interested in business courses. I didn't want to do that. I didn't like accounting. I didn't like numbers, right? Big mistake. So I would take business courses and immerse yourself in that more, even if you think you don't need it. That is something that will follow you through the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
So I think that's something that's pretty important.
So you've given us a lot of advice, but for our last question, it was, if you could give one piece of advice to the next generations of ag leaders in Oklahoma, what would that be?
So I think, again, the networking thing is really, really important. Step outside of what you know. Step outside of what you know. Do not limit yourself geographically. I think that one's really important too. I was raised in New Mexico and Southwest Texas, right? But don't limit yourself geographically, and don't ever pigeonhole yourself into, I'm going to do this one thing. I would encourage people to focus on, this is the kind of life I want to live, and like, this is what's important to me. If it's helping people, if it's being in education, right? And then find where that takes you, because you might limit yourself when there's some really great opportunities that will take you somewhere you would never know.
Yeah, you have to be willing. At
Yes.
the end of the day, you have to be willing to wake up and try.
Yep, open yourself to other opportunities.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, I think that's kind of a wrap on today. We appreciate you coming very much.
Yep.
It was
Thanks for having
very
me.
interesting to get to learn about you guys. So with that being said, again, I'm your host, Ben Eddy, with our guest, Caitlyn Word, and that is a wrap for today.